Halloween Havoc has descended upon the WCW, and the effects will surely be felt with tremendous magnitude. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is a strange case of Sean, here with chapter 17 of my story, New World Order, Undertaker. A story written by me, with some assistance from ChatGPT. We've arrived at another pay-per-view, and I will recap how we got to the key mark matches that will take place in this video. But before we get started, please be sure to check out the previous chapters, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. I appreciate all support. And with that said, let's get started, shall we? The first of the major matches on the card will see the newly named Dungeon of Excellence, represented by Rick and Scott Steiner, defending their WCW Tag Team Championships against the unlikely and unnamed team of Chris Jericho and Dean Malenko. Jericho and Malenko seem to have formed their bitter rivalry into a fairly balanced tag team, to the point of even winning the WCW Tag Team titles from the Outsiders in one of the most shocking victories in WCW history. The team was well received by the fans, but wasn't looked too fondly upon by other teams, including the Steiner brothers. They are very transparent about their feelings, and even won a #1 contendership match to challenge for the titles. Through shenanigans, the Steiners were able to attain the victory and regain the championships. Jericho and Malenko wanted a rematch, and Dusty Rhodes obliged, while also granting a request of Bret Hart's, which was to return to in-ring action in the form of serving as a guest referee for the title match. Hart would not do the best job, as he made some questionable decisions in the match, which would lead to the Steiners retaining the titles. Hart and the Steiners would then attack Jericho and Malenko after the match and would form the Dungeon of Excellence. The Outsiders made their intentions clear that they wanted to regain the Tag Team Champions for the nWo, but Jericho and Malenko took issue with that, saying that they deserved another rematch. The teams would face off to see who would challenge the Steiners at Halloween Havoc. Jericho and Malenko would win a hard-fought battle and earn the opportunity to regain the Tag Team Championships. Can they do it? Well, we're about to find out. Opening the pay-per-view is the WCW Tag Team Championship match. Out first is the unnamed team of Chris Jericho and Dean Malenko. They make their entrance surprisingly together, but bicker about whose music should be playing. They get into the ring, and the bickering continues, but stops when the music of the champions begins. The Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, representing the Dungeon of Excellence, make their entrance with determined looks and ready for a fight. Formal introductions are done, and the bell rings. Dean Malenko starts the match opposite Rick Steiner. The two circle cautiously, locking up in a tight collar and elbow. Malenko shoots for a waistlock and transitions smoothly into a side headlock, but Rick muscles him up and drops him with a back suplex. Rick barks to the crowd as Dean rolls to his feet, unamused. They exchange quick mat sequences, counters, reversals, and a standoff that draws applause from the fans. Malenko tags in Jericho, who immediately quickens the pace, hitting the ropes, ducking a clothesline, and nailing Rick with a spinning heel kick. Jericho flexes to the crowd, firing them up before tagging Dean back in for some double team work. The two hit a crisp double drop kick, sending Rick stumbling back into his corner, where Scott tags himself in. Scott Steiner comes in like a wrecking ball, hitting an overhead belly-to-belly suplex on Malenko, followed by a pump handle slam that shakes the ring. He taunts Jericho, flexing and shouting as the crowd boos. Scott continues the punishment, repeatedly tagging Rick in and out, cutting the ring in half. Rick crushes Malenko with a power slam and covers. 1, 2, Malenko kicks out. The Steiners isolate Dean, driving him into their corner with stiff strikes and quick tags. Every time Malenko tries to crawl toward Jericho, one of the Steiners drags him back. Finally, Malenko catches a break, countering a back suplex mid-air into a crossbody for a 2 count, then diving across the ring to make the hot tag. The crowd erupts as Jericho enters like a bat out of hell. He hits dropkicks on both Steiners, a flying forearm to Scott, and a running bulldog to Rick. Jericho springboards off the ropes with a perfect lion salt. 1, 2, Rick powers out. Jericho stays on him, transitioning into the lion tamer, but Scott breaks it up with a brutal elbow to the back of Jericho's neck. All 4 men spill into the ring again. Malenko takes Scott down and locks in the Texas Cloverleaf, while Jericho and Rick trade blows. The referee struggles to restore order, shouting for control as chaos continues to unfold. Then, we notice Bret the Hitman Hart walking down with a steel chair. The referee, distracted by the melee, doesn't notice Bret's presence. Dean hits a crossbody to Rick, sending both of them spilling out of the ring. The referee yells at both men, trying to get them back to their respective corners. Jericho climbs the top rope, signaling for a high-flying move. Hart rushes to get near Jericho. He then throws the chair at Jericho, causing him to fall off the turnbuckle. Bret collects the chair and gets out of view. Scott stumbles to his feet and grabs Jericho. He lifts him up and hits the Steiner screwdriver. Scott covers. 1, 2, 3. The Steiners win and retain the WCW Tag Team Championships under suspicious circumstances. The Dungeons celebrate together in the ring. The commentators discuss what they just saw when they are interrupted by a shaky camera feed, where we see a brawl breaking out. We see security trying to break up a fight between Bradshaw and Randy Savage. They trade blows and even exchange shots with weapons. Another camera pans to show Farouk battling Lex Luger in the parking lot of the arena. Luger whips Farouk into a car in the lot. Bradshaw then runs to his partner's aid. Luger and Bradshaw begin to trade shots. Farouk recovers, then joins Bradshaw in battling back Luger. Suddenly, we see Savage climb a car. He then leaps off of it, taking out all 3 of the other men. The camera returns to the commentators, who then discuss the brawl, but try to get the focus back to the show. In a match with major stakes, we will see the leader of the Dungeon of Excellence, the Hitman Bret Hart, take on the Icon Sting. Let's take a look at how this match came together. Several months ago, we saw the arrival of the Undertaker in WCW. He made a big impact on his first night, taking out the 2 major players in WCW, including Sting. He would then be announced as the new leader of the nWo and be awarded the vacated World Heavyweight Championship. From that moment on, Taker would face many challenges, including defending the championship against Bret Hart, which he did successfully. Along with defeating the Hitman, he would also take him out of action with an undisclosed injury for a significant time. Sting would make his triumphant return, attacking the leader of the nWo, sending the message that he wanted the championship and purge WCW of the nWo entirely, while Hart would make his return alongside a new faction, the Dungeon of Excellence. Hart demanded his talent be acknowledged, and it was to a degree by Executive Vice President Dusty Rhodes. Dusty recognized his talent, but condemned his recent actions. Nonetheless, Dusty still wanted to serve the fans, and Dusty decided to do just that, by putting Sting and Hart in a singles match to determine the #1 contender for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Out first is the leader of the Dungeon of Excellence, Bret Hart. He makes his entrance with the Steiner brothers. He then sends them back, and we hear the mic catch Hart saying, "No need for now." The Steiners stay back, and Hart continues on with his entrance to a loud chorus of boos. He enters the ring as the lights dim and the music of the Icon plays. Sting makes his entrance out to a thunderous pop. The crowd clearly has a favorite. Sting finishes his entrance, and formal introductions are completed. The bell rings, and the match begins. The 2 superstars lock up. No man is able to get the advantage, so they break. They lock up again, but then Bret cheap shots Sting with a forearm to the jaw. Bret works slow, deliberately, grinding Sting down with headlocks, arm bars, and his trademark calculated offense. Bret hits a gut-wrench suplex and covers early, just a 1 count. Bret keeps control, driving elbows into Sting's spine, then dropping him face first into the turnbuckle. Sting tries to rally with heavy right hands, backing Bret into the ropes, but Hart cuts him off with a knee to the gut and a DDT. Bret begins to mock his opponent. He then starts mocking the crowd, holding up his hand like he's already won. That moment of arrogance gives Sting the opening he needs. Sting nails a sudden back body drop and sends Bret flying. Sting feeds off the fans' energy, pounding his chest and shouting before hitting 2 big clotheslines and a drop kick that sends Bret rolling to the outside. The crowd chants for Sting as Bret regroups on the floor. Sting steps to the apron, but Bret yanks his leg out from under him and slams him hard into the barricade. shifting the momentum once again. Bret also delivers a suplex on the apron outside, as the referee continues to count for them to return to the ring. Bret throws Sting back in and begins to target Sting's lower back with stomps, elbow drops, and he hits a leg breaker. Bret applies a leg lock to Sting, who scrambles for energy to fight through the pain. He reaches the ropes, causing a break, but Bret utilizes the entire 5 count. Sting tries to recover, but Bret delivers a sharp elbow to the back of Sting's head. Bret then applies a sleeper hold in the center of the ring. The ref checks Sting's arm. Once, twice, almost 3, but Sting's hand shoots up. The fans erupt as he powers to his feet and elbows himself free, hitting the ropes, only for Bret to catch him with a kitchen sink knee strike and a snap suplex. Bret climbs a second rope and nails his classic double axe drop, covering again. 1, 2, Sting kicks out. Bret argues with the referee, giving Sting time to recover. As Bret turns back, Sting fires up, rights and lefts, an Irish whip, and a Stinger splash in the corner. The crowd explodes as Bret stumbles out, right into a bulldog. Sting goes with a scorpion deathlock, but Bret counters with a small package. 1, 2, Sting escapes. The pace quickens now, both men exhausted but defiant. Bret tries for a piledriver, but Sting reverses it into another back body drop. Bret rolls to the outside, clearly rattled. As the referee checks on Sting, the Steiner brothers come marching down the aisle. Rick climbs onto the apron as Scott distracts the ref, shouting that Sting used an illegal move. Sting hits Rick with a dropkick, knocking him off the apron. Scott then begins shouting to the fans. As Scott remains distracted, Sting picks up Hart and whips him into the ropes. The referee sees Hart coming and moves out of the way, causing Hart to knock Scott off the apron hard into the barricade. Sting uses Hart's momentum to pick him up and hits him with the Tombstone Piledriver, a clear message to Taker. He goes for the pin. 1, 2, Bret kicks out. Sting is confused. Sting scrambles to think of what to do next. He goes to pick up Hart, but he gets poked in the eyes. The referee checks on Sting. Hart gets to the middle ropes and calls for Scott to hand him a chair, but looking at Sting and the ref to avoid detection. Hart does not see Jericho is now at ringside. Hart shifts his attention to whom he thinks is Scott, but gets drilled in the head with a chair. Steiners then chase Jericho away through the crowd. Sting recovers and sees Hart laying on the ground, trying to gain a sense of his surrounding. He picks up Hart and hits him with the Scorpion Death Drop. Sting covers. 1, 2, 3. Sting wins and will face off with the WCW World Heavyweight Champion of the final pay-per-view of 1998, StarrCade. In another backstage segment, we see an ambulance leaving the arena. We then see Mean Gene Okerlund ready to address the camera. He begins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've received an official update. The Macho Man Randy Savage and the Total Package Lex Luger have been advised to visit a local medical center after a vicious attack from the nWo's acolytes, Bradshaw and Farouk. But I can confirm that they too have also been taken via an ambulance to the same medical center. Hopefully no chaos ensues there. This is pure Havoc backstage, no pun intended. We still have the main event tonight to come where, wait, what's going on over there? Gene begins walking over to a door where we see Paul keeping the door shut to the locker room of the Undertaker. Gene is able to get the mic close to Paul. We can hear Paul mumbling, "I understand. That is the last resort. It will be done." Paul then closes the door and jumps in fright after seeing Gene behind him. He scolds Gene. "How dare you intrude on other people's business, Gene? Don't you have anything better to do with your time?" Gene responds, "Not when I'm making guaranteed money to get the scoops. Now tell me, what was that all about?" Paul responds, "Oh, I know you're dying to know, but that's official business of the New World the Order. Now, excuse you." Paul walks off. Gene continues, "Well, not too much to go off there, but we will still have the championship bout to come tonight and, oh hey there." We see Dusty Rhodes walk up and address Gene. "Oh Gene, I'm very, very excited for this match to come up. You should come watch with me. Let's enjoy a cocktail or two and sip upon the suffering that the dead man is about to receive." Gene responds, "Well, I'm not sure if I should comment on picking a favorite in this match. and I was going away for the after party for a cocktail, but how can I say no on the dime of the VP? Dusty then grabs the microphone. There you go. People in the truck, play that hype video and let's fast track this title match. They then play the hype video. Oh wait, technically I'm the people in the truck. Guess that's my cue to give the recap leading up to the final match of Halloween Havoc. The King of Terrors, The Undertaker, has shaken the core of WCW ever since stepping foot into the company, taking out many notable wrestlers, sidetracking their careers, and conquering the WCW, all to his plan. Part of his plan saw the demise of fan favorite Goldberg. The undefeated brutality was causing earthquakes of excitement in WCW, but when he was taken out by the nWo, the WCW and fans learned this was a different group than they saw emerge at Bash at the Beach 1996. Dusty Rhodes devised all sorts of plans to counter Taker and the nWo's conquest, but to no avail. That was until Dusty learned something. Dusty felt the foreshocks before an impending earthquake, but he kept it to himself. Dusty informed Taker that he would be defending his World Heavyweight Championship at Halloween Havoc, but kept the dead man waiting. That was until this past week, when the unexpected earthquake shook the WCW and the nWo as Goldberg made his return. He was back and sent the clear message that he was ready to shake the Undertaker and the nWo, hopefully as much as possible to take the championship away from the faction. But Goldberg isn't going into this without any stakes on the line as well. He still has his undefeated streak still intact. One era will join the soil, but the question remains, will it be Goldberg's undefeated streak or the Undertaker's title reign? That question we get the answer to right now. The arena lights flicker as a haunting gong echoes. The crowd rises in awe as the Undertaker makes his slow, deliberate entrance, with Paul accompanying him with an anxious look on his face. Moments later, the mood flips entirely. Goldberg's theme hits, sparks fly, and the powerhouse storms through the pyro. The crowd chants for Goldberg as he continues his way down the ramp and into the ring, not shifting his focus away from the champion. Formal introductions are done, the bell rings, and the match begins. The two men walk up to each other, squaring each other up. Taker has a noticeable height advantage. They talk trash to each other, but we can't make out what they are saying. Taker shoves Goldberg. Goldberg answers back with his own shove that actually sends Taker back somewhat. Goldberg follows that up with strong strikes that sends the champion into the corner. Goldberg continues with the furious flurry of attacks, but Taker blocks one shot and chops Goldberg in the throat, staggering the challenger. Taker then grabs Goldberg by the throat and throws him in the same corner. Taker follows that up with a flurry of punches of his own. The referee gets to a 5 count to let Goldberg out, and Taker chases the ref away. Taker returns his attention to Goldberg, who hits him with a thunderous shoulder block. Undertaker goes down, but sits right back up, glaring. Goldberg smirks, but grabs his throat. He goads Taker to get back up, but Taker rolls out of the ring to regroup with Paul. Taker walks back up the ring steps and re-enters the ring. Taker and Goldberg engage in a test of strength, with neither budging. Taker shifts the hold into a headlock, but Goldberg showcases his tremendous strength, turning the lock into a pup handle release. Taker recovers, but gets met by Goldberg, who hits him with a belly-to-belly suplex. Goldberg goes for a cover, but Taker forces him off before the ref can get into position. Taker rolls out of the ring again and regroups with Paul. Paul whispers something to Taker. Taker shakes his head no, and Paul looks worried. Taker again returns to the ring and calls for another test of strength. As Goldberg makes himself vulnerable, Taker hits him with another thrust to the throat. Goldberg clutches his throat, and Taker continues beating him down with boots. Taker is then able to connect with a side slam to the challenger. Taker then picks up Goldberg in a power slam position, but throws him across the top rope, continuing to target his throat. Goldberg doesn't go to the ground, but again grabs his throat. Taker then hits him with a big boot. He pins the challenger, but only gets a 1 count. Taker puts Goldberg in a front facelock and uses his strength to drain the challenger. The crowd chants on Goldberg. He musters up the strength to pick up Taker, who keeps the hold locked in, and Goldberg falls back on the champion, breaking the hold and to the applause of the crowd. Goldberg is then able to land a spine buster that gets the crowd to roar. He signals for the jackhammer, but Taker slips behind and hits a chokeslam that rattles the ring. Taker goes for a pin. 1, 2, kick out. Taker argues with the referee while Goldberg recovers. Taker again returns his attention to his opponent, who hits a series of clotheslines, taking down Taker. He then lifts Taker up and hits a gorilla press slam. He covers Taker for a pin. 1, 2, Taker kicks out. Taker begins to recover while Goldberg positions himself to the opposite corner, signaling for a spear. Then, the ring posts explode with fire shooting up. The lights turn red and Kane begins to make his way down the ramp, when suddenly he is blasted from behind by the returning Giant. Kane begins to fight back, but the Giant is able to counter back each attack. Kane stumbles away from the Giant, who continues his revenge attack on the big red machine. They disappear through a side part of the entrance stage. Goldberg looks on confused while Taker returns to his feet. Taker goes to charge Goldberg, but he turns around and uses Taker's momentum against him, sending him crashing into the turnbuckle. Goldberg then rebounds off the ropes and hits Taker with a spear, and the crowd explodes. Goldberg goes for the pin. 1, 2, Taker kicks out, catching Goldberg by surprise. Goldberg gets back up to his feet and signals for another spear. Suddenly, Paul gets onto the apron and tries to distract the referee. Goldberg gets angry, but then gets blasted from behind by Vampiro. Vampiro hits a spinning heel kick to Goldberg. He exits the ring and Taker goes for the pin. The referee returns his attention to the match and goes for the pin. 1, 2, Goldberg kicks out. Vampiro is angry. He tells Paul he knows just what to do. He walks back up the ramp, then a familiar guitar riff sounds in the arena, followed by the words, "Self-high five." The crowd erupts with adulation. Vampiro stares in shock at the entrance ramp when he's attacked from the side by Diamond Dallas Page. DDP lands some powerful strikes, and when Vampiro swings wildly, gets caught with a diamond cutter. DDP then hits his signature pose. He then picks up Vampiro and continues his attack on him to the backstage. Goldberg and Taker get to their feet simultaneously. They trade blows back and forth. Goldberg hits a powerful shot and staggers the champion. Taker looks to return the favor, but Goldberg is able to block and hits him with a power slam. Goldberg gets to a corner, looking for another spear. Taker eventually rises and turns his attention to Goldberg. Goldberg charges to Taker, but runs into a knee, staggering the challenger. Taker then hits him with a quick tombstone piledriver. The crowd deflates. Taker pins him in classic tombstone fashion. 1, 2, kick out. Goldberg actually kicked out. The crowd pops huge. Both Taker and Paul look mortified, no pun intended. Taker gets up off the mat incensed and yells at the referee. While they argue, Goldberg recovers and gets to his feet. Taker turns around and gets hit with the spear, and the crowd cheers continuously. Goldberg signals for the jackhammer, and the commentary team shouts in excitement as they're about to be witnesses to history. Goldberg picks Taker up off the ground and connects with the jackhammer. Goldberg pins Taker in classic jackhammer style. 1, 2, then Goldberg and the referee get distracted by Paul, who is on the apron looking sad. The referee stops the count and tells Paul to leave, but instead, Paul enters the ring. He pleads with Goldberg, saying he can give Goldberg even more unmatched power. Goldberg looks at Paul, then hits him with his own spear. Paul screams in agony, and the crowd is elated. Paul then rolls to a corner and out of the ring. Goldberg signals to the crowd that he wants to go for another jackhammer. He goes to pick up Taker, but quickly, Taker cinches in a triangle choke. Goldberg struggles to break free. He fights and fades. The referee has no choice but to call for the bell. Taker wins by referee decision. The ringer announcer announces Taker as the victor and still champion. while the commentary team announces that Goldberg's undefeated streak is broken. Taker celebrates his victory over Goldberg, who wakes up from passing out and spitting up blood to end Halloween Havoc. For a pay-per-view that was promoted to be filled with havoc, it really was quite unsettling. Despite interference from both sides, The Undertaker was able to walk away with the victory and the World Heavyweight Championship. Along with learning just how dangerous The Undertaker can be, we learned that he will defend his championship against the man he took out on his first night in the company, and perhaps the final hope for WCW, the man they call Sting. But has the nWo been destabilized after tonight? We'll have to see in the next chapter. Thanks for watching. Stay strange, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next video.